Developing and executing a great business plan for the year doesn't have to be as daunting as some may feel if you follow a system. Now, the system that I've seen work time and time again for business owners is broken up into 3 parts, and I'm going to go into more detail on each of those. But it really comes down to the planning phase, the execution phase, and the learning loop phase is what I like to call it. So what I've seen from business owners at the beginning of the year, especially when we start looking at the plan, there's a couple of things that I've seen. One is over-ambitious goals. Now, the goals to be ambitious is great, but if we don't have that broken down into a plan that's executable, then it falls really flat at the beginning and we have to build ourselves back up, redo a different plan, and we lose a lot of momentum that way. Momentum is a great thing, but first is action. Action then leads to more momentum, and that's what we need to get going. The other challenging part is with lack of alignment with the team. So there might be a great business plan put together on paper, but it's not being shared with the whole team, which leads to a lack of accountability, measurement, and then focus around what the main goals for the business really are that year. The final challenge is with the adaptation of new strategies. So we might have some new strategies we want to implement as part of our plan inside of this business year, but we haven't put enough time into the learning aspect of that to know that it's actually going to get built up. An example could be with direct marketing. Maybe we have a strategy to implement a direct marketing strategy, but we haven't got the time built into the plan to learn about it, to read some books, to get advice, and then go execute it in stages to really get the results, to see what we need to fine tune. We just have it executed, and then once it doesn't work straight away, which a lot of things don't work first time, then we lose, again, that momentum, we lose the actions that are involved with it, and everything slows down. So the first part of that is the planning phase. So with planning comes goal setting number 1. So goal setting always comes down to SMART goals. Are they specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound? If you've got those 5 components inside of your goal, it's going to make you a lot clearer on what actions have to be taken to move the needle and make sure that the goals are becoming successful. Second thing inside of the planning phase is either a SWOT analysis or a risk assessment. That's going to give you clarity around what could go wrong and what things are in your control, but what things are also out of your control. If they're out of your control, yes, we could try to think about other ways that we could do something about, but they're really out of our control. Let's put them aside. We'll have maybe a backup plan, but let's focus on the risk assessment for things that is within our control. The way we treat our customers, the way that we're reaching out in marketing, the way that we're putting our value proposition across. All these things are very, very controllable with us, and that should be focused on inside of that risk assessment. The last part of that in the planning phase is making sure that plan is visible. That can be on the wall, it can be broken down. I love 13-week quarters so that everything is mapped out, what we're going to do for that 13 weeks in our plan, but making it very visual so everyone can see it. You should never be away from a plan more than just a few feet away. So if you're at your desk, you've got it next to you. If you're continuously traveling around and in the car and doing sales calls, then that plan is in your portfolio and you can always look at it to know what you're working on, and you're reflecting on the activities that you've done today that's going to lead you to tomorrow. The second part is with the execution phase. So that's again broken down into 3 components. The first one being to do with workflows. So if you have a specific goal, do we have a mapped out process on a swim lane or on a process map of all the steps that have to happen for that specific part of your business to go get executed? So if the goal is to do with marketing, do we have that marketing flow? If it's to do with the sales process, do we have that whole workflow ironed out so it's very standardized? We know the best way to go through that. If we don't know the best way to go through it, we'll start with current state. Start with your current state and then work your way through. As we get into the last phase, into the learning loop, we can look at how to modify those workflows so we're getting the most efficient process out of our workforce and the business. The second piece is buy-in and alignment with the team members. So bringing them into the goal setting stage is a very good way to get them aligned at the beginning and when you're putting that whole plan together. But if not, a review of that process and a review of the plan might be just what you need. Making sure that everyone's in alignment with these are the goals and how they interfere or how they interact, with their current KPIs, the measures that they're working on their business. We don't want them to be too far polarized to make sure that we're still getting the right results and the focus on the goals, but making sure that the day-to-day work is still happening as well. It depends on how you set up your KPIs with their existing workflow. And the third piece is making sure that we have a monitoring system. So we may have standard KPIs for the employees inside of the team, but how are we measuring the goals? So if we have 3 or 4 major goals that we're working on this year, how are we measuring them to make sure that everyone in the business knows what they are, knows where we currently are, and then what are they doing to contribute to that overall objective of the goal? So breaking it up into components, into timelines, so that we know where we should be within the course of the year. And the third phase is the learning loop phase, is what I like to call it. But there's 2 components to that. One is the learning of what we need to learn before we actually execute the plan. This is often something that's missed. We have an idea, we have something new that we're going to do, and we want to get it out there as quickly as possible, but we haven't allocated the right resources. Maybe there's some components or some people inside of the business that need to learn a little bit more, execute it, try it, see what works, what doesn't, and then they can teach it to others. Or it could be that there's a group of people that are all learning at the same time, but making sure that we've allocated the resources appropriately for that learning cycle inside of it. The other part of that is to make sure that we're learning from how we're actually executing it. So with that monitoring phase and the execution, where are the lessons learned being built in? What worked? What didn't work? What correlations can we put with some of the other teams and maybe some of the other parts of the business that are working together for this goal? What are we seeing that works, and how do we replicate that? Again, going back into our workflows and taking the best and standardizing it as much as we possibly can. As well as the learning, making sure that we've got a very systematic process for how we're going to review this. As the business owner, I always recommend you're digging in with the team at least once a week. Now, that could be a very short meeting. It could be part of your team meeting that you bring up the scorecard and see how it's going. But then monthly and certainly quarterly, let's make sure that we're diving in, having a good deep depth review of the actions that we've taken, the learnings that we've done, and what impact that has had to the execution to our goals. All those combined together will absolutely make sure that you have a well-planned and executed plan throughout the year. If you're looking to increase the certainty of success in your planning and execution with you and your team, reach out to us at ActionHTX.com. We can set up a 20-minute free discovery call, and we can take all of these aspects of the planning stages or just one component and see how that can interact into your business and how we can increase that certainty that you're going to achieve the goals that you had at the beginning of the year. I'm Andrew Buchan, your Business Accelerator.